Over the years, the question of whether or not it is acceptable for the Ten Commandments to be present in courthouses and state buildings has been going on. The argument quickly gravitates towards the separation of church and state, but I think that this issue can be handled without evoking that separation. The argument is made that the majority of Western laws are derived from one or more of the commandments, and because of this, it's only right to have the Ten Commandments in courthouses and state buildings as a reminder of sorts. But how much validity is there to that argument? For those of you who don't know all 10 commandments, here they are in an abbreviated form. But don't worry, I will be going over them individually as we figure out just how much they impact our laws. And coming up, please be aware that "thou shalt not" has been replaced with "you shall not," as I'm working with a new international version of the Bible. Now, before going any further, you should be aware of what the First Amendment of the United States Constitution actually says. It goes a little something like this. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, I know what you're going to say. But Mr. Gabadon Chillweasel, sir, I thought you weren't going to address the separation of church and state. Well, I did say that, and I meant it. Even though the First Amendment is very clear about keeping religion and government separate, my problems with the Ten Commandments are much more practical. But to fully understand them, I need to make sure that you understand what is said in the First Amendment. And with that out of the way, let's get started. The First Commandment is pretty straightforward. You shall have no other gods before me. Unfortunately, the Ten Commandments has already run into a bit of a snag. Saying that you can only have one God is in direct contradiction with the First Amendment of the Constitution, the part that says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Not only are there no laws that enforce the acceptance of only one specific God, but the commandment is ultimately unconstitutional. Well, maybe we'll have more luck with the Second Commandment. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. And then it just kind of goes on from there. Again, the restriction of freedom of worship is unconstitutional. Also, the Second Commandment says that you can't make idols. In other versions of the Bible, these are referred to as graven images. Making carvings or images or any other form of art is not only a religious issue, but a free speech issue, and restricting the freedom of speech is also unconstitutional. The Third Commandment is one that most people can remember: blasphemy. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. This commandment is designed to limit what things people can say and the language they use. This commandment goes against the freedom of speech and is therefore unconstitutional. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Yeah, I'm not reading all that. It's not important. Aside from liquor laws, which are imposed on us by the lobbying of religious factions, there aren't any laws that state that we all have to take the Sabbath off. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Honoring your parents is a nice idea, but anyone who spent more than 7 minutes in a Walmart can say that not all parents are worth honoring. There are no laws stating that a child has to obey or honor their parents, and there is no jail time for telling your father to go screw himself. Unlike the Bible, where you are instructed to stone an unruly child to death in Deuteronomy chapter 21, verses 18 through 21, while Leviticus chapter 20, verse 9 says that cursing your parents is punishable by death. There's no law against being a little bastard, and not being able to tell off your parents, warranted or not, is a violation of free speech, and is therefore unconstitutional. You shall not murder. Now this one actually makes sense, as there are many laws to deal with the many kinds of murders, not to mention the fact murder sucks. However, I have to point out that this commandment, though a really good one, isn't exactly black and white. Now, imagine a woman who is beaten by her husband every day. He beats her before beating their children. One night, she wakes up and consciously gets out of bed, gets the gun from the closet, and shoots her husband in the head while he's still asleep. Would you convict her of murder? Honestly, your answer to that question doesn't matter, but the fact that you know that different people will have different answers does. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm going to allow this one, but I just wanted it understood that even though you have to go to extremes to get a gray area, those extremes and that gray area do exist. You shall not commit adultery. Yes, cheating on your husband or wife can have consequences, even legal ones, but cheating on your spouse is not an arrestable offense. In some relationships, infidelity is okay. Though it isn't common, some married couples allow for themselves and their spouses to take lovers outside of their marriage. In other instances, only one of the couple has an affair, while the other one just really doesn't care about it. While there are laws against polygamy, again, which were brought about by religious bodies, there aren't any against adultery. You shall not steal. Yes, another good one. There are many laws dealing with the many kinds of theft. But what about stealing food for your hungry family, or stealing a gun from someone who's told you they're going to commit a violent crime? Again, I'm more than happy to allow this one. I'm just pointing out the gray area. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. There are two parts to be answered here. There's lying in general, and then lying in court. There's nothing illegal about lying in your everyday life. Sure, it depends on why you're lying, or how often you do it, and there may be social repercussions from those who you've been lying to, but there's nothing really the law can do about you saying, "No, you don't look fat in that dress." The other is lying in court, or to a police officer, or in some other official way. Now, those kinds of lies are illegal. Perjury and interfering with a police investigation are no joke in this country. You will end up fined or serving time. Even though only half of this commandment is a legal issue, I'm going to award it the full point, as my version of the Bible says testimony, and I'll take it at face value of today's meaning. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, or maidservant, his ox, or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Coveting means to want something that someone else has. Wanting something that someone else has is one of the founding cornerstones of a capitalist society, not to mention that no law exists regulating or penalizing a person's internal, personal desire or thoughts. Thought crimes do not exist. So it's not looking too good for the commandments, not as a legal compass anyway. Even with giving them the benefit of the doubt, only 3 of the commandments have anything to do with our legal system. That's only 30%, which is just slightly less than the 40% of the commandments that are unconstitutional. Though a few of the commandments happen to coincide with our legal system, they don't come close to making up for the commandments that would reverse the First Amendment. Most people are good people that really want to help this country. Their motivations and intentions are good and honorable. Unfortunately, the only way a person knows how to help someone else is by using the techniques that have worked for them. And sometimes that means religion. Now, I have no problems with the 10 Commandments as a religious doctrine, as it deals with loyalty to a deity, and it tries to get people to be nice to each other. I get it, it makes sense. But not when it comes to running a country that's far more diverse than anyone can really understand. To those of you fighting for the commandments, I want to thank you. You're only trying to help the only way you know how to. I understand that, and I appreciate it. But trying to force something like this just because it's the only thing you can think of doesn't make it right. And in this case, it would actually do more bad than good. Now, I have one final thought before I go. I want to remind all of you that no one has ever been convinced of an argument by being called stupid, when what they really need is an understanding and compassionate education. And I want you to remember that you can be the one to give it to them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.